Well, thank you. Thank you all for coming to a panel remembering Trina Robbins, and who was a guest here last year. And very sadly, I wasn't able to come see her. And then even more sadly, she's left us since then. But she hasn't really left us at all. I mean, right? Yeah.
She was such a huge influence that it just doesn't, the world does not seem possible without Trina.
No, no, exactly. And so anyway, I will introduce myself. I'm Heidi McDonald. I am the editor-in-chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com, also kcomicsbeat at kcomicsbeat.com, our sister site. So we have Barbara Slate next to me, who is a cartoonist of great renown, and worked with Trina at many points. And then on the end, we have Barbara Willie Mendez, another pioneering great from the women's comics days, another friend. And here
Thank you.
Let's hear it. So for Barbara. So we have some slides. So I'm just gonna kind of run through the slides. I can't see what the next slide is, so it's kind of a little wonderful surprise that I can't prep for. But that's okay, because we're just gonna.
Shall we talk about the slides as they come?
Yeah. I mean,
Because this one is of Trina and I in the art gallery that I run, with the cover of a Minyen Yidn by Trina and her father, and we're standing in front of the painting that the cover was.
Are these your covers? Or?
Yeah, we're holding the cover that was made from the painting behind us. I did the cover for a Minyen Yidn,
you can see
which
that.
was amazing because there are 13 stories, and I illustrated every single one, and I really liked my own interpretations.
Did you in a Minyen? Did you do all the drawing in there, or
No. So then Trina hired other people
it was an
to do
anthology,
each one of the stories.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Let's look through a few of these, and here you are with.
I had to get that photo just less than a year ago of Trina and I holding It Ain't Me Babe. Where on her side she's holding her front cover, and on my side I'm holding my back cover. So that's a very recent.
Well, let's
picture.
go back a little bit though, because the genesis of that "It Ain't Me Babe" goes back 50 years?
Yeah, more.
Yeah, 60
We were
years.
young.
Yeah. Tell us about how you first met Trina, where you were, and what you were both trying to do.
Kim Deitch is the link there between me in comics and Trina in comics, and me and Kim and Trina in comics. So Kim Deitch was a friend of my first husband, Rick. And so, in fact.
How many did you have?
2. But actually, we weren't married. We were shacking up in the Lower East Side. And Kim would come by our apartment and show us his Sunshine Girl strips on his way to the East Village Other, where they were published. And then Kim got a new girlfriend, and the girlfriend was Trina. So that's how I met Trina.
And did you? But you
later,
met here. You met here in the East Village, though.
In
right?
the East Village.
Yeah.
So then we were friends, and we both worked on the Gothic Blimp Works, and we both knew each other through Kim. However, then when we all the underground cartoonists moved to San Francisco the same year, Spain, everybody seemed to move there.
Even Art Spiegelman, which blows my mind.
So my husband and I, Rick, we were looking in the newspaper in those days. That's how you found an apartment. You looked in the classified section. And across the street, we see another couple looking in the classified. It was Kim and Trina. They were looking, had just moved and looking at the same time. So we rented a house together. And both Trina and I were pregnant. Trina was about 2 months ahead of me, or 4 months ahead of me. But we were both pregnant. This is one of the ways Trina was always ahead of me. So she was like ahead of me, showing pregnant. And when you're pregnant, it's the biggest news in the world, your first child. But I wasn't showing yet, so all the pregnant news was Trina. And so we shared a house. Then when we moved out from that house, Rick and I got an apartment in the Noe Valley. Then right after that, Kim and Trina split up. And that's when Rick and I moved to Oregon and took everything and went to Oregon. And we gave our Noe Valley apartment to Trina and Casey. So we've been close ever since those days.
Amazing. I think, there's Trina when she was here in New York in the East Village. We're running her
broccoli shop.
Her store, Broccoli, which was a little boutique where she sold her clothes. And I guess.
But more than that, she had a comic strip that was her advertisement. And that's the first way I knew Trina's art. She had a weekly comic strip in the East Village Other, which was actually a paid ad for her broccoli shop. But it was a little cartoon, and that was my introduction to Trina's artwork.
I mean, look at her.
Trina was a babe.
Oh my God, look at her. Well,
she looks amazing.
She's incredible.
And she
and what's
had
amazing,
a career as one.
Like Willie, you knew her then, but it's just I met Trina in the 80s, and Barbara, I want to find out when you met Trina next. But she had so many lives. like this Trina, I didn't know at all. Like she told me stories about her, but I did not know this Trina. That's me and Trina and Cindy Martin back in the maybe 1990, I guess, in San Francisco. I'm visiting Trina in her house. You could see some Edgar Rice Burroughs paperbacks behind me because that's what they had in the guest room. Anyway, we're getting all dolled up to go to a party, but
That's you over there?
yeah, that's me on the right. Yeah, I know, right? Well, anyway, I didn't wear my polka dots today, so it's pretty similar. I want to find
That's the iconic shot right there with Trina
yeah.
with the new baby and me with the baby in the belly.
Where are you? You're on the
I'm on the right with
with
the
the
tummy
big tummy. Yeah, that's
Well,
what
there
that.
and the
You're
afro.
showing.
Yeah.
So
But Casey's already out. See, now she's got the baby.
Yeah. So look at and the hair. Oh my God, amazing. All right, Barbara, I want to jump ahead a little bit. We have some slides of you on here as well, but it's after a little bit of the women's. Tell us when you first met Trina and what that was like.
Well, I knew the name Trina Robbins way before I met her. It was the 90s, and Trina was doing comics for Marvel at the time, and I was doing comics for DC. And at that time, comics were like 95% boys, 5% girls. So we were the two women who were doing comics for mainstream Marvel and DC. And her loss is something that she was such a huge force in all of our lives and all the women who were doing comics. So just, the first time I met her was in Chicago, and it was like such a wonderful thing because we had been, kind of not communicating, but heard a lot about each other. And I remember just meeting her for the first time. We sat and had a drink, and she was wonderful.
Yeah, I don't remember where I know I first met Trina at the San Diego Comic-Con. I know that, and I don't remember the specifics of our first meeting, but yeah, she was an idol. I mean, she was.
She was a real force. And the men in the comic book industry, a lot of men hated her. Am I right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, because she would tell you within 15 seconds of saying hello. I'm a women's feminist. I'm and so she was intimidating.
But I think. So Willie, you were there, so you would have more insight into what her thinking was. But I think when she was here, she very much, with Broccoli, with her comic strip, I think she very much had a place in the cartoon firmament, or her place,
sure.
Her role. She had a very understood role that she was secure in, and it just sounds like when she moved to which still blows my mind, but literally every underground cartoonist just got in their car and drove west, and I think then when the guys started getting together and the women cartoonists were sort of left out.
There wasn't like that at all.
Okay.
There was no like women cartoonists. There was Trina and me. We were peers. We were equals. Trina was the girlfriend of Kim Deitch, who was totally in with the dudes. So yeah, there were a lot of dude parties and dude things. They'd give stuff and Kim would be in on it, but Trina wasn't, because it wasn't her thing. It was like, and so she felt so left out because it was Kim's thing, that it was his friends. However, I got into a couple of those male books. Insect Fear, back cover. Boogeyman, I only had a story rejected because it was too gross, which is really saying a lot from Boogeyman. And the other one, my Cupid the Groupie story, Trina rejected and Bill Griffith rejected. But it went on to, it's published somewhere. Both of them are. And they're in the oeuvre of comics history. So I didn't have the same, because my boyfriend wasn't in the play. My boyfriend was a musician, and I never went around comic stuff because I had to hang out with this stupid band all the time. But Trina was in the world. But I think it's because she was a girlfriend initially that perception arose.
But I think how and thank you for setting the record straight, by the way. Okay. I mean, I want to hear your version of
it's always
history.
portrayed as Trina, the giant, looming over everyone. And you say, like, the women. Trina knew more women than me, and she did gather a group for It Ain't Me, Babe, Hurricane Nancy, etc. I really didn't know the other women.
I think it
sure got big from after that.
I think what's interesting about it, though, is that she did become a centerpiece, you know.
She carved herself a niche.
Yeah.
Trina is a double Leo, I'm pretty sure. She was born on the same day as my daughter. That's another thing about my daughter that I'm pregnant in the picture with. She was born on Trina's birthday. So, like, there's no getting away
Wow.
from Trina. There's
Wow.
no getting away from Trina. But Trina carved herself the biggest niche that you're all referring to, but having known her before
Right.
and watched her in the process, she carved that niche. And she carved it carefully. And she worked
did.
hard at it.
Okay, yeah, she didn't take anything from anybody. She was really out there.
Yeah, but she also did her research, and I just want to say it ain't me,
Brilliantly
babe.
so.
Yeah, but you know, this was the first comic by all women to be published, at least in the underground era.
And it was Trina's baby.
and it was but you were also the contributor. You were
She was the editor of this book.
Yeah. And there we go. There's another of the women's comics. A little bit later, Willie is not.
I wasn't involved in women's comics. I had moved to Oregon,
Okay.
and Trina rejected my story.
So you know, look, there's a lot of history. Now, I do want to point out the man in there, Ron Turner, because he did publish "It Ain't Me, Babe," right?
did.
And that was like the second or third comic that Last Gasp ever published. So he was in on it from the beginning. That's Lee Mars in the lower right, and obviously Trina standing next to Ron. But and here's some of the women's comics. That's the first issue, and. Still as appropriate. Willie, I wanted to put some of your work here, but
So this
I
is the
couldn't
back
blow
cover.
them up, yeah.
This is, first of all, I don't know where you got this black and white picture because it's a full color back
Yeah.
cover for Insect Fear, one of the boys' books. But this means that somebody out there has the original with the color separations. As a matter of fact, they were in a gallery show, which I knew nothing about. Nobody alerted me that I was in a gallery show in New York.
Well, this
but I
was,
found out
you know,
later.
where I got the slide was from Heritage Auctions because they were selling the artwork.
See, that's what I'm talking about. I would dearly love to know the provenance on who owns
Interesting.
getting some heritage
Well,
auction action.
I apologize for the
So-
black and white, but
This
again,
really was black and white.
Yeah.
Take This Woman. It was a good one. This was from San Francisco Comic Book Company. San Francisco Comics.
And what year did you do this?
I would say 69,
Wow.
70. 69. Yeah, it's 69 because it actually takes place on the Lower East Side. I drew the story in San Francisco and it was in that comic, but its subject is the Lower East Side in New York and the human being in Central Park later.
It is amazing work. I'm so glad that you're still around and talking about the stuff that you're doing because it was so good then and so good now.
Thank you.
Just another cover here. And, you know, as we got into the 80s, I think this is a transitional slide. 88, does it say there? Yeah. So now we're entering the Barbara Slate era, I think. So, yes. All right. There you
Yes.
There
go.
you
Is
are.
that
Well-
here last year?
I met Trina. The last time I saw Trina was at this convention, and somebody was taking a picture of us together. And right before this picture, Trina said, "Wait, stop! I'll show the next slide." There she
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And I saw her putting on lipstick, and it just like that bubble was like ready for my close up.
Yeah.
I just saw that, and isn't that a wonderful picture?
It's amazing, and
Yeah.
it's Trina to the core. And you look how good she looks with the lipstick on too. I mean, honestly, if you did know Trina, you know that thrifting was her favorite thing to do, right? Did you do any thrifting with her?
I'm not like that. So
Yeah.
Trina, with the big giant feminist of the universe, was a very girly girl. And several of her behaviors, I just don't do them. I'm a womanist. Womanism is to
Well,
feminism like
I will
lavender is to
I
the
will
color
say
purple.
I like my lipstick, so I was definitely I was young when I met Trina, as you can see from that photo. So I loved going thrifting with her. But I will say, looking at these photos, like she had such a great sense of fashion, and I was just like, oh yeah, I just will wear whatever I like wearing. But Trina would always put together
even
an
at this
outfit.
convention.
Yeah.
She had on her dress.
I mean, look
she
at her.
looked
Look
marvelous.
that she made.
Yeah,
That was hers.
look at her.
And I said, "Oh, you look so great." She goes, "I made this dress."
Yeah,
You know, she always had.
she was
something
so innately fashionable and very much girly, but that was
and
truly
very much her own style.
yeah, very much part of her. All right, so Barbara, I have your slideshow here, so if you want to
Okay,
take us through this a
so-
little bit.
I'm writing my autobiography, and it's about 17 years that I've been working on this, back and forth. I'm doing other things, not just this, but this was, I guess, during the 2000s. And this is Tom DeFalco. These are all sketchy because I haven't finished it. And I think I presented him with maybe 5, 6 different ideas, and I marked in my calendar because I didn't want to be a pest. So I marked in my calendar, okay, so I haven't pestered him for like the last month. And I kept going and presenting things, and he would be like this with a cigar.
We really had a cigar, by the way, right?
Oh,
This is
yeah,
not,
absolutely
you
had a
could smoke
cigar.
indoors in these times.
And he'd say, he'd look and he'd say, no comment, no nothing, this is great, nothing. And then he'd say, well, if you have anything else, bring it in. And I was like, who the hell does he think he is? This is like my 5th presentation. And then I remember I was taking the subway, and I thought, I have an idea. So this was I'll call Trina.
Well, before we get to your fateful phone call with Trina, I want to dig in a little bit, because this is where I entered the story, and in the 80s, I was writing about comics for a comics journal, Comics Buyer's Guide, and as I put it, you could fit all the women in comics into one room where they'd be sitting with their arms crossed. So it was just such a bad time for women in the comics industry. And what were you doing at this time? Why were you in pitching to Tom DeFalco, who was the editor-in-chief of Marvel at the time? How did you get to be pitching to him?
This was after Angel Love.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Angel Love was
the
published by
80s.
DC, right? Yes.
This
Okay.
was the 80s, and Angel Love was drug, sex. You remember it?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
rock
yeah,
and roll,
yeah.
and abortion and all the things that the newsstands just loved. So I was taken off the newsstands, and I could only do 6 issues. And as I say, I would have still been doing Angel Love. I loved doing it, but
Were you doing illustration at that time, or comic strips? What was your
I
main?
was doing greeting cards.
Okay.
And I started with a greeting card named Ms. Liz. It was the first feminist greeting card. And so that's how I was able to get into Jeanette's office, because Ms. Liz became a comic in Cosmopolitan magazine, and then we did Ms. Liz and I did the Today Show many times, and she was an animated cartoon. So by the time I got to Jeanette, she had already heard of Ms. Liz, so I was able to get through the door.
And that was Jeanette Kahn, who was then the publisher of DC Comics.
And I have to say,
yeah.
Jeanette Kahn was this character.
Oh,
you remember character?
amazing. Just
Do you remember Jeanette?
I never knew her.
Oh,
yeah,
she
but
was.
she was yeah.
She was like this superhero. I remember her standing at the door to greet me, and she had on this red jacket, and with what are these called?
Well, she always
Epaulets.
wore feathers because she didn't want an animal to die. Unlike myself, I'm wearing a leather jacket, so I'm sorry, Jeanette. But and so she would wear coats and accessories that were trimmed with feathers because they could fall out, and the animal was not slain to make the garment. So she was very much, and then it kind of became her thing too. So
Yeah, and
she was always in feathers.
and here
amazing.
she was a woman coming into DC Comics.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was extraordinary.
And it did incredible things. And so at this time, me coming into comics, as a journalist, it was, this is like, again, early 80s. So it's like post underground in the mainstream. The direct sales market is just beginning. And it's just every single time women try to break into the mainstream, which is Marvel and DC, it's just, obstacle after obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. But Jeanette was trying to do this women's kind of, she wanted to do comics for girls. So Angel Love, and now back to.
And so here, this is how Trina comes in. So
Yes.
it's Screech, and I'm like, I just knew what to do. I'll call Trina. How could Tom refuse the 2 top women writers? I'll bet the only ones. And And so back at the apartment, Trina, it's Barbara. Marvel's thinking about a girls' line. Let's collaborate. And that's Trina going, ha, Marvel doing a girls' line, that'll be the day. They're too busy objectifying women with gigantic breasts to even know what a real girl looks like. She would rant like that.
Yeah.
And I'm a feminist and I object to the way I objectify women. And then there's a sigh, let's do it. So that's how we started collaborating.
Mm-hmm. And the result of that.
And here's some of just the sketches were back and forth. Mm-hmm. And you can see the notes, and it was just fun. And
so you were co-writing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were co-writing, we were drawing, and and she was on the West Coast, and I was the East Coast, so we decided to do this comic of these two girls that meet at camp, and they start out as enemies, and then they become friends. And each month it would start with a letter to each one, and we just had great ideas. I mean, of course, it got rejected, but here's a letter from Trina, and I always loved her pink letters coming through the mail.
Oh, look how cute those drawings are.
Yeah.
Ah.
And this is I can't, it's hard to read, but can you read that, Heidi?
Well, we've tried, wait, all right, we gotta read this for those who can't see. Well, I've tried rewriting it and tightening it up, but I've come up with 4 double-spaced pages, so I think that'll turn into 2 single-spaced pages. I just made minor changes. For instance, crazy glue instead of nails, because if it were nails, they could have pried the sneakers off the floor. But crazy glue is impossible. And sandals instead of heels, because they have had sandals. If you want to tighten still further when you retype, God bless. Forgive this dreadful typing. I have a tendency to transpose letters when I type. Let me know. Cheers, Trina. Oh, that's so great. The story conference. You know, now they would be Zooming, I suppose.
But this was through the mail, and of course, you know, we really got to we did character studies, and we did ideas for plot. We did a lot of work, but you can go the next.
Yeah.
And anyway,
Hildy Mesnick, I loved her.
This was
great lady.
The other time I worked with Trina, this was can you go back to those credits?
Yeah.
So I did the script, and the pencils, the amazing pencils were done by Mary Wilshire, and the inks were done by Trina. And Trina also did some of the writing for Barbie and Barbie Fashion. She was a wonderful inker.
She was. She taught herself the airbrush and all that stuff.
Yeah, so she inked this story, and I, anyway.
So just to go back though, so this whole idea you had about the camp and everything, did it get picked up or it didn't?
No. And when I saw Trina last year, I said, remember, because it was so long ago, I said, remember that, we worked on this together, and she looked at me like, what? and she said, it didn't get picked up, did it? I said, no, it didn't.
Well, you did Angel Love. Did you do any comics for Marvel or DC after that? You did, right?
Yeah, I did a lot of Barbie, and Beauty and the Beast.
There was a Barbie comic, and it became the repository for all the women who were into comics, like Amanda Connor. It's like, let her draw Barbie.
That's exactly right. It was any woman, and Hildy, because she was the editor. That's Hildy, and that's Leah in the background. And it really was the dumping ground for all women in comics. And we were thrilled. We couldn't have been happier that we had this comic. And Hildy really, we all were like so passionate that we were influencing these young girls. And Barbie was a feminist in this comic. She could do anything, she could live anywhere. And we really made sure that little girls could understand that they could do anything.
And just look how beautiful that art is. I mean, Mary Wilshire is an amazing artist. She also did Powerpuff. Is that Tom DeFalco?
And that's Tom DeFalco.
But he does.
He comes in and he goes, I got good news and bad news, and I forget what the good news was. And the bad news. And she says, what do you want to hear first? And Hildy goes, well, tell me the bad news. He goes, oh, the Barbie books are canceled.
Yeah.
And she says, well, what's the bad news? What's the good news? And he goes, I'm leaving your office.
Oh my God.
And just as a side note, Hildy and Tom are married now.
What?
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that.
They're married. They've been married for about 5 years.
Oh, nobody told me.
Oh,
Oh,
well, I
shocker.
was at the wedding and I
Oh,
gave
well,
the speech.
I mean, boy, oh boy, that answers a lot of questions.
Heidi, can you read what
Yeah.
Trina says? Because this was so. These
I mean,
are all.
listen, I barely can. But,
These are all. These are all the. I can read it. These are all the creators.
Oh, it's hard to read. What? I'm not making Barbie anymore? They're really canceling the Barbie books? I gotta do my Trina. I can't believe it. You just tell them. No. I'm flying in. It's the typical blah, blah. Oh, I'm writing a letter. I'm furious. I've never thought of it. Yeah. That is
She loved that depiction of her.
Oh, wow.
And and if you go around, these are really people who've been in the comic industry.
Yeah.
There's Lisa Triziani, who just had a baby, and of course Hildy's in the middle.
Yeah.
And
Wow, I did not remember this Romane Clough comic, and I am like taking
The
these
drawing
slides.
is beautiful.
Oh, it's so good. And the coloring is great too. Wait, I'm sorry, go
every-
back. Who did the coloring? Ashley Pasala. I mean, everything about it is
everything
amazing.
about it, and that was due to Hildy.
Yeah,
that
she was a
just-
great editor.
She was a great editor, and that's me, and I'm saying, oh, so glad you called. I just thought of another idea, and Hildy starts crying, and then she calls everybody, and this is Amanda Connors.
You know, Amanda Connor, as you might know now, is like world famous superhero artist who does Harley Quinn. I mean, you know, artist, world famous comics artist. Oh man, so wait, they let you do a comic about the end of Barbie. So this was in the last issue of Barbie.
Well, you'll see.
Oh, all right.
Hold tight.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
What?
So now Hildy is really pissed off. I'm going to get, and this is this page, what we used to do with Barbie, just between the girls, we used to say really gross things. and this was Hildy coming out, and she's like all upset, and one of the guys are going, oh, she must be on the rag. and this, one of those pages got sent to Mattel. This is a true story. And Hildy was freaked out. She goes,
Yeah.
oh my God. And she called, she goes, I'm really sorry. And they go, no, it's fine. But it was just something
Yeah.
to have fun doing. And then it was
Woo,
April Fool's.
April Fools. Yay. Oh my God, wow.
So that
I
was
did this slide and I should have seen that. I did not realize.
That
Wow.
was a really fun story. And
Tom
as
smoking his cigar, by the way. That
And
is,
as you
yeah.
said, Heidi, every single person who did these stories
Mhm.
we took such pride in them because it's the only thing that was for girls.
Yeah. We call it the Barbie ghetto, but you know,
I didn't know that.
but Trina was, I would say she probably, I mean, she enjoyed doing Barbie. That was the kind of book that she would have done on her own. And I did not put any.
Because Barbie was a feminist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she was a feminist, but it was also like the kind of girly, fashion-y stories that Trina really enjoyed telling, you know, because then she did do California Girls for Eclipse and Misty for that. I mean, she did do a book for Marvel, right? Yeah. Misty was for Marvel, yeah. And so, which I should have made a much better slideshow, but anyway.
Well, I just have this other Trina story. So I was in Paris because I was hired to paint the walls of this the story is way, way long, but I was waiting for the person who hired me to come and pick me up. I was in an apartment in Paris, and I'm sitting there. He was 5 minutes late, and I'm just going. I picked up Der Spiegel, and I'm looking through it, and I think, what am I doing? It's in German. I mean, I took German in school, but I flunked. So I'm reading this, or not reading it, and all of a sudden I stop. Okay, next, and I see this. Now this is Trina's book in Der Spiegel. This is her, and that is my image from Yuppies from Hell. And I remember looking at it and touching it and thinking, wait, am I actually seeing, is this real? That it was just so bizarre to come across that. And I wrote to Trina, and I told her that her book if anybody can read German, I would love to know the review. But I told her that it was reviewed in Der Spiegel, and she had no idea. Well, you were saying that you never know where your work is and where it's reviewed, but this was, we all owe Trina. Like she did so much for me, for my career.
So-
If you hang on to that, Barbara Eggert would be able to. Barbara Eggert, Eggy, she'd be able to translate it for you.
That'd be great.
yeah.
She's a mutual.
But so it was American Trina Robbins Kitchen Sink Press.
Yes, well, Trina did 2 books about women cartoonists, and the first was
Century of
or-
Women
well, no,
Cartoon-
the first was like women in comics,
The
something,
100 Greatest
and
Women
she
or
did it
something.
with a collaborator who then they had a falling out, and so then she did a new version of it, a new and improved
There were 3
version
of them,
called A
yeah.
Century of Women Cartoonists. Now, you were in these books?
I'm in all 3 of them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So
and she-
because.
I'm in all 3 of them too. She just really gathered us together.
And that's me and Trina last year. I was doing an oral history with her for the California library system, and you can see the whole interview up online, and really
Who's
great.
that woman in back?
Well, that Trina's house is like a museum. I mean, that's her studio. Like, there's awards everywhere. I mean, it's really inspiring just to be there with her. That is our last. We'll leave up Trina primping because that's a very emblematic of her.
Isn't it? It was so. I saw it and I.
Yeah. No, I'm
was
so
so
glad
glad my
you. I'm
camera
so
worked.
glad you captured that moment because Trina would pull out her lipstick and it would be like this shape that when you primp and put on lipstick regularly, you create this shape in your lipstick, and hers was like this kind of ski slope. I mean, it was incredible, and she just knew how to do it. She
You know,
was
we
always
don't-
apply.
Trina was also extremely brave when she had breast cancer, and she made a newsletter so that she didn't have to tell individual people, but everybody would understand what exactly she was going through at that time. And she handled that with such bravery and such grace that was really a fine moment for her.
So how did your relationship, like you mentioned, you moved to Oregon, and then your story was rejected from women's comics. But how did your relationship with Trina progress over the years?
We kept in touch over the years. We just always kept in touch. It picked up again in the 1990s. I found myself downtown running an art gallery downtown, and I had, remember, public access? So I had a public access television show, and I invited Trina to be my guest. So she flew down from San Francisco, or she came and visited, and she was a guest on my public access show.
Nice. And
So-
did you tape it in Eagle Rock or Santa Monica?
Santa Monica.
Yes,
Natch.
I did
Do
that.
you still have that?
Yeah, but on 3/4 inch
Yeah,
tape.
right. I did
So-
a show too. I have these 3/4 inch tapes sitting in my storage.
One of
unit.
them,
I'm
the
like,
last one that I did 3 different series, and the last one is digitalized, but the first 2 are all still 3/4 inch or VHS cassettes.
You
That'll
can
make
send
it
them
easy.
somewhere, and they. Can
Yeah, I
post
could
it.
have it done some tape. It's
Yeah.
extant.
Yeah, you need to donate those to one of the big archives of comics history.
Then the
because-
next big thing happened in our relationship was when my daughter passed away. I became very close to a woman whose husband had passed away in San Francisco. So I started spending a lot of time in San Francisco, and so then I just totally saw Trina. That overlapped with her breast cancer period. So some before, some after, but we just were close friends during that period.
That's great. So what about your own work? I mean, you kind of veered away from cartooning for a
I
while.
didn't veer away. Cartoons veered away from me. There was a trajectory. I did the undergrounds. I did with the old guys. Then along came Trina. I did with Trina. We did the 2 books that we've discussed. All Girl Thrills was the second. Then I came out and did my own. This is All Girl Thrills, the second feminist comic book
Yeah.
ever. And it was Trina's cover. I have to schlep it out. Anyway, just like these with my back cover. This was a special book, speaking of my work, because I did the best story. This is my back cover for All Girl Thrills.
Amazing.
I did the best work I've ever done. It's in the history book. The history of illustration includes this panel, the first page of Realm of Karma Comics. So this is
Amazing,
reproduced in a
amazing.
history book, a college textbook, and also in my Queen of Cosmos comics. The whole story is reproduced. So
Can you hold that towards me? I want to record this moment. Just hold it and not covering your face. I apologize. Perfect.
So then I moved on. Now it was time to edit my own book, right? I had edited with Trina, and now I'm going to edit my own book. So I edited Illuminations, and this was a famous book because it had splash panels by many of the famous cartoonists: Robert Williams, Kim Deitch, Spain, Bill Griffith, Justin Green. So many great cartoonists are included in this book and it's still, nobody threw it out. So it's still extant. You can order it on eBay or online. People sell copies. So at that time, after my edited book came out, it was time to do my solo book. So I was in Oregon. You can make comics wherever you are. So I worked and worked. Actually, that's when my kid got sick, so I finished in New York. But I finished Tales for the Modern Mystic, my solo book, 36-page comic book by Willie Mendes, same spiritual type subject matter I'm noted for. And I got 100% boot in the face, 100%. I mean, Ron Turner happens to be one of my least favorite people because I was in the very first comic he ever published, inside front cover. And I did this last year at Comic-Con. I went up to them because they had the whole file there.
And he was in the Hall of Fame, so yeah. It was a
Right,
good
and
year,
I said, I did the inside front cover of issue number 1 of Slow Death number 1. And he did, and she brought it out and opened it out, and there it is. I really did.
Why did you get booed? Who booed you?
Ron would never publish it. He seems so Willie. I hate to mess up your hair, but he'd go like, Willie, you're so cute. He'd give me the vibe like, oh, Willie, I love you. You're such a cute little thing. No. Like when I did Queen of Cosmos Comics, my return to comics after 50 years, I sent it to him. It was like return post. I got this adorable little note. Dear Willie, thank you. It looks so cute. So Willie, but I don't have the audience for your work was Ron's line. Always. For 50 years, Ron didn't have the audience for my work.
But you're very cute.
But I'm cute.
We
So
hear
I
that
just thought
many
that the guy
times.
could have read one of these and maybe cut me a break over the years.
I just, it's the kind of thing that Trina would rail against and we all rail against.
Yes.
But I mean, it's a real story that, one of my female cartoonist friends who's insanely talented. I won't even say what she does right now because she's so successful, but she went in to pitch at
You don't want to tell us who
DC.
she is?
No, because when you hear the story, you'll know why.
Okay.
And at DC, they rejected. They said, "Oh, you're not quite ready to draw comics for DC, and sorry, but thanks for coming in. And would you like to go out with me?" Like, come on, people. Like, oh, it's so like we all. I mean, Willie, I'm not going to speak for you. I'm not going to speak for you because you have had an incredible journey that you should speak to yourself. But, I will say I've run into that quite a bit and overcome it. And, Barbara, sounds like you had, we all have had.
Men are so entitled. If there's men in the room, you have no idea the entitlement that you experience every single day of your life. You're just entitled. I came from the panel at 11:30, the Harvey Picar panel. There was like 5 guys. Each the body language was entitled after from ours. Each guy was like this. Each guy stood there like this. No one was in a hurry. No one was like, oh, I hope I'm not taking up your time or anything. They were just like, my shit is the best. And I did so much and it was all the best. And each guy was just like, the best. They have such power, such belief in themselves. And also other guys on the floor, they go, my book, did you hear about it? This, that, the other thing. Then you see it's just like, but there's no correlation between the actual, I'm just saying, men are entitled to think great of
Well,
themselves.
it's just-
and I think we need to learn from them.
Look-
And humility is not our goal anymore.
No, I mean, I think when Trina's books came out, okay, for me as a young comics fan, I was thrilled, of course, because I was like, wow, all these women had done comics and were so successful because I was just so used to hearing
we
messages.
wouldn't have known about
We
them if it
wouldn't
wasn't
have,
for Trina.
And look,
She's the one that,
From obscurity.
Yeah, we would have been lost, without these books about women. I mean,
Gladys Parker.
and Gladys Parker, Rose O'Neill, all of these insane, like
Lily Renée, she brought back from
discovered this, Holocaust survivor who was so talented, and then she got married and didn't draw again, and that's what women did in those days. But it was just so inspiring. I mean, I didn't even realize like that Marie Severin drew comics. Because whenever it was talked about women in comics, they would also be, well, of course, there's colorist Marie Severin. And, it wasn't until years later that I'm like, oh, she drew the Hulk and Doctor Strange, and the work is really great, huh?
Not only that, but if you met a male who was a colorist, that would be the greatest thing. They'd be the most proud of it.
I know, right?
Not
Right,
just the colorist.
So let me ask you this, and also if anybody has questions from the audience, raise your hands and get some.
But I wonder, Heidi, that when Trina died, there was this huge obituary in the New York Times of her.
Yes.
I don't know if anybody read it.
Yeah, we read it.
And well, of course you did. And then I remember on Sunday morning, I turned on the TV, and there was this on NBC. There was this whole segment about Trina.
Yeah. They had contacted me about that for some friends of Lulu, but it didn't make the piece. But
Yeah, I just wonder if she knew. Like I'm hoping that she was up in heaven, that she could have read.
Oh yeah, I saw that in your notes. I think Trina knew.
I think she did too.
I think she knew
did.
because she got picked up by limos, and
Oh, she did?
Yeah, she had a taste like Prada when they did her clothing. They picked her up in a limo and took her over here. And when she went, she flew and she was
Okay, then I'm not
honored.
worried
She got
about
a PhD in France.
I think Trina. I think what I was trying to get at with the anecdote about her kind of just forming her own world, her own collective, was that she did have supreme belief in herself, and she's just one of those people who knew. I think she wanted to be Trina. I said when I was a kid, I was like, you know what I want to do for a living? I want to be like Andy Warhol. What does he do for a living? He's just Andy Warhol. That sounds like a great thing to do. And I think Trina was the same. I think she wanted to be Trina Robbins. That was her, and to make art and to write, but to be Trina. That was her goal.
Well, she did a good job.
Yeah, she did. Let me ask you this. What is your, and Willie, I'll start with you. What is the number one lesson you learned from knowing Trina?
Perseverance. Trina persevered. Yeah, she had hard knocks, but that woman persevered so hard that she became a full-page obit in the New York Times. She persevered.
I did
And
that.
she had strength.
How did that influence your life?
Trina was not a gigantic influence on my life. Trina did not play a significant role in my life. I was just very good friends with her over the years. But she was in no way someone that I looked up
No,
to.
that's I appreciate that you
We're
setting the
we're
record
peers.
straight.
We're like girlfriends.
Right. Well, that's what I'm just
And respectful
yeah,
girlfriends.
Yeah.
And so I just honored her, and she honored me.
It's wonderful. How about you, Barbara?
I just admired her big mouth because
I took it over. But I
did?
busted some people the Friday night. I just go, I can't say it out here. What is
Okay,
a bunch?
but
It's a dick party, I just
I
said.
admired her because she just didn't take anything from anybody, and she was such a force, and she fought those guys. She was a fighter. I mean, I wasn't. I actually got along with most of them. I'd go to DC or Marvel maybe once a month. It wasn't enough for me to get into trouble, but I knew Trina.
Or work.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no, I was
No,
lucky.
I know. I'm just.
I was
Yeah.
fortunate.
In a way, I think I did learn from her the perseverance because it worked for me too. Because when they tell you you're no good and they put the boot in your face and they reject you, you're supposed to go away and disappear.
I just want to be really honest. It's like, again, as a comics, journalist and being trained by other guys. I mean, I did have, Kat Ironwood was she was the co-writer of Trina's first book about women and cartoonists. And she was a huge, influence or role model for me as well. But, it just does crack me up that, the guys I would talk to would just be, idolizing, okay, Robert Williams, sure, one of the most influential painters of the last 50 years, sure, no question there. And
Oh, I got a good story about him.
but then there would be, I don't want to name names, but I will just say there would be other male underground cartoonists, so they were just like, oh, they're the greatest, and we must put a book out of their, collecting their comics about, pedophilia and bestiality, and it's so great. And then when I see your work, Willie, it's amazing, and I'm like, how come they weren't saying that about your work? I wonder why.
What influenced you about Trina?
Oh, well, wait, I want to hear the Robert Williams story. Then I'll answer.
So when Robert Williams had the famous exhibit at MoCA called Helter Skelter, he was one of the artists that was part of it. It was a fringe festival. There was a lot going on downtown, and some other cartoonists were gathered at my loft downtown. We were talking about stuff, and they brought up Robert Williams, and I was mad at Robert Williams because that stupid picture of the naked woman on the taco shell. So it's offensive, it's exploitive, it's demeaning, and I don't like it, a naked woman on a taco shell. Yuck. So I say, oh, I hate that naked woman on the taco shell. I go, I'd like to see Robert Williams with his little dick on a taco shell. Right? So how did you
know it was little?
So that's the story. So that night comes the opening at Helter Skelter at MoCA, and I attended the big public one where you get to say hello to the person for 5 seconds. So, and I knew Robert Williams. He's appeared in Illuminations, so we're already friends. I had brought it and picked up his work and everything. So then I get my time in line to say hello to him. I say, hi, Robert. And he goes, hey, Willie, I heard you said I had a little dick.
That was a great. I was living in LA at that point. I'm surprised we didn't run into each other then, but
no, I wasn't in LA. I was in San Francisco.
Oh, okay. All right, at that point, yeah, but Helter Skelter, that was at MoCA in LA.
Yeah.
Right?
So how are we talking? You're right. I was in LA in the 90s.
Yeah, that was a great show. But I did go see that.
I did meet up with Jackie Estrada and
Yeah,
people who were in
maybe
LA
we
at
did.
that time.
Maybe
Mary
we did
Fleener.
meet and just I don't know. What did I take away from Trina? Well, we co-founded the Friends of Lulu, which was an organization
So
in the
important.
90s to try to get more women in comics. And Trina, I mean, she influenced me in everything. Like thrifting and this looks cute and that doesn't, and fighting for yourself. Absolutely, the resilience, but also the standing up for yourself and not taking any guff, and also just being a polymath. I mean, you could talk about anything with Trina and Steve, of course, her wonderful, wonderful partner, and just, hanging out with them. It was just, there was no topic of artistry or creativity that didn't come up. But, she did this research and she went and looked at old newspaper articles from the 50s that showed statistics about comics readership, and that showed that 50% or more of the readers of comics in the 50s were girls. And this was absolutely mind-boggling stuff to the Tom DeFalcos of the world, And, like it just, so many times men in comics told me, girls don't like comics. And I'm like, are you out of your freaking mind? They do, but they don't like your comics. So anyway, like the fact that Trina did this really hardcore research that had numbers and, photos of the girls reading, like if you look at photos of kids reading comics from the 50s, they show girls reading comics. This wasn't some woke nonsense. This was just who read comics, was all kinds of kids.
Psychologically, you guys helped me so much because I attended that panel about Friends of Lulu, and I learned all about it from you guys several years ago at Comic-Con. And I was just relieved because I was just one of those people that was like, no, all of a sudden in 72, no, that it was really part of a real thing.
Yeah, it was, sadly. So, yeah. So we've all, she was an inspiration, and I was really excited to do this panel and talk to Willie. And, we were on her memorial panel together at San Diego Comic-Con this year, but, talk more about it.
And in San Francisco, too.
And to hear Barb. Yes, that's right.
I have Trina's page here from
Oh.
Illuminations. This is Trina's page from the book that I edited, Illuminations, and it's called Star Queen Holds Up the Sky.
And I want to say that, Willie, you are exhibiting downstairs, and, your work is very much interest to people, I think, who are here at the JewCE. So go down and check out your contemporary work. But anybody have any questions out there or comments? Anybody with anything to ask this? Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, she did pro-life.
She was into gay, too. Oh,
Yeah.
the first.
Yeah, pro-life.
Choices. So I mean,
Choices.
she just recently, like one of her last works was a pro-choice anthology.
Pro-choice, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember she texted me and texted. No, of course she didn't text me. She wrote me and said, "Would you do a page?" And of course I did. It was for abortion. It was pro life, and I remember doing that page. And as soon as she got it, she called. She goes, "This is perfect." She was so excited. So
She did something out of the closet as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she did, but yeah, she was also involved, obviously, with that. And Liz Schiller, they formed Angry ISIS Press. Liz Schiller was also instrumental in Friends of Lulu, and she has also spoken at many of Trina's memorials. And I know she's been working on kind of putting together some material about that time, but I think she was also involved in just, I like the 80s activism was, we didn't like South American dictatorships and assassinations, like we were anti-Reagan then, and which seems so quaint now. Quaint and, childlike.
Yeah, bring back Reagan.
Yeah, bring
Oh
back
my
Reagan.
God.
Yeah, let's, he was adorable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Nixon. Well, Nixon was the most liberal president, this side of Obama, really. But anyway, yeah, she definitely, I know with Liz Schiller, and then she continued her pro-choice activism absolutely throughout her whole career. And she also contributed to some others. I should have, I'm just trying to remember some of the other things that she was really involved with, but that was probably her
You were
number
starting
one.
to say something, and I rudely
Yeah, sorry.
interrupted you about her activism and about the abortion commie.
Well, just that, that was, it's funny because I just sold my archive, and I've went through it, and all the Trina books are there, and and I was just so, I guess proud is the word, to be part of her, pushing women's rights forward. So yeah, I think that was a huge thing that they bought it. They were happy to see that.
Where did you sell it to?
Washington University.
Oh, nice. Well, it's so great that so many archives of cartoonists and artists are being, archived in that way. So we preserve some of this history. Anyone else out there? Anything else? Yeah.
I was in college in the 70s, and I was super into underground comics, and I worked in the library, and I would check all these newspapers in, like Pissed Off Pink, and Gloria Steinem came to speak, and Susan Sondheim, and Jane Fonda, and I was just so enamored with that kitchen sink press, all that, and it just really, I worry about the young women today who don't have that kind of inspiration, who don't have those kind of influences. I just feel like sometimes we're sliding back, and I'm at a loss for what to do.
Well, it
with
was-
some of my mentors that I'm working with.
I think in the 90s, when we did Friends of Lulu, there was a lot of really great organizations like the Guerrilla Girls, who were artists.
Oh yeah, Guerrilla
and,
Girls.
and Riot Girls, and they're giving me the wrap it up sign, I think, there. So we're almost out of time, but yeah, I think there was a lot of our organizations that were just, I don't know. I agree with you. I thought the message was really clear and empowering, to use that. So
Well, certainly comics are, girl comics are not mainstream at all anymore.
well, I wouldn't say that, but they're mainstream more in the readership online, and in manga.
It's all online.
Yeah.
But it's not that physical book.
Yeah.
That was so wonderful. I used to just love going into comic book stores and getting the book.
Yeah. Well, listen, comics have always been part of whatever resistance or revolution or counterculture there is. And, Trina was absolutely an inspiration for all of us in every way. And we bless her memory today. And Willie and Barbara, thank you so much for coming and sharing. And thank you for coming.